Hello everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of BXB's Bits and Bobs, episode 1. I am your host, and I've got to remember to talk into the camera, because we're on camera! We're on a Google Hangout, this is live, and if you are unfortunate enough to stumble across this while we fumble our ways through it, I do apologise, but this will be our first episode, and it will get better, and it will hopefully be more entertaining than us not being on camera. But I'm your host, I'm Ben, I'm the editor of BXB, and I wrangle these fools together today to talk about mostly video games, but it's not going to just be video games. With me, the stalwart, the skillful writer, the artisan of BXB, Richard Worrell.
I'm an artisan. That's nice. Thanks. I don't know quite what that means, but it sounds good.
I see it as the way you craft your words. You create wonderful pieces of literature for us to enjoy when you play games, which is occasional at best. Accurate? Yeah.
Quality over quantity, mate.
Absolutely. Richard is my rock. He's been with us since the Brit Xbox days. He came over for this relaunch and helped us build this new team of creators. And one of the new team, our social media manager, I'm going to go with the full title for him today, and our first guest on BXB's Bits and Bobs on our rotating third chair is Gavin Handley.
Hello.
The famous Geege from back in the day.
Yes.
Way back.
Well, let's do that straight away, because I think Gavin's story is quite interesting. He's a time-traveling video gamer. So tell us what I mean by that, Gavin. Tell everybody what I mean, because I think he's curious.
Well, how did I label it to you before that I've been in a kind of, not to mock anyone who's ever been in a coma, by the way, but I've been in a kind of games coma that I've recently thawed out of. Actually, that's not even a coma. That's not cryogenics. So I didn't thaw. In fact, I wasn't even in a coma. So that made the dog bark.
Did.
So, yeah, I was on BXB when it was Brit Xbox back in 2002, when Ashley set that up, and I was a bit of a stalwart on there, and I was a moderator, and somewhere in between moving to Australia and my Xbox 360 breaking, I just stopped playing games, and fast forward to about 2 months ago, I inherited an Xbox One, and I'm back.
Tell people how you've set your Xbox One up and how you play it with it, because I think that's also quite an edge case as well that you don't hear about very often.
Yeah, so I was saying to someone yesterday actually that in last few years I've been itching to get an Xbox One because I'd seen some game trailers and thought, I'd really like to play that, but I don't own a television, so the prospect of buying an Xbox One and buying a television seemed a bit daunting, so I'd avoided it. And so I was gifted a second-hand Xbox One, and I learned that you could do streaming. So from the Xbox, you can stream to a Windows 10 machine, but that gets more convoluted for me because I have a MacBook. So I don't have Windows 10, but I do have an app on the Mac called Parallels, which enables me to put a Windows 10 partition on the Mac. I then have an Xbox which lives under my bed, like some sort of gaming troll machine, and it streams from the Xbox to the Windows 10 partition on my Mac, and then I plug a controller into the MacBook, and that's how I play. But because it's a bit ropey with a wireless internet connection, I have to put the quality onto its lowest. So all these wonderful full HD games, or whatever they are on Xbox One, they look a little more akin to Xbox 360 games, but hey, I can play games.
So it's kind of like you're still playing games 7 years ago.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I've never been able to experience these high-definition games. So for me, it's just like some new games came out for the Xbox 360.
That's so weird, man. And that's probably why you like The Division so much. No, but I shouldn't knock The Division. I reviewed The Division. I think I gave it an 8. I really liked The Division, but I didn't like it to Gavin's level of addiction. He's one of those people that I've spoken about before on my friends list, where who that's all you seem to ever be playing, and it's I don't know how it can hold your attention as long as it has. It's crazy.
I've gone from a point where I really enjoyed it to now I think I'm ill. So I find myself, I log in daily, and I go into the base of operations, which is the single player's base where you can do whatever you need to do, and I know exactly what all the NPCs are going to say, when they're going to say it, and some of them annoy me, and I talk back to them. I'm definitely going mad. I usually tell them where to go, and I need help, so get me help.
It does sound like you need a new game. I think it's interesting though that for me, when I came to the Division, it felt like another open world Ubisoft game. But to you, it was your first open world Ubisoft game.
I tell you, it's interesting for me because it was the first new game to come out that was hype after I got the Xbox One, and people were making enough noise it made me think, yeah, I want that. So I pre-ordered it and got it. And yeah, I've never played a Call of Duty game. I've never played a Battlefield game. I haven't really played console games since about, I'll say 2005. And so for me, even the graphics looked great, even though I was on super low quality and it looked like an Xbox game or something. So it had enough about it that it grabbed me. And also, I'm a bit of a wimp on a lot of shooting games, so the idea that I could hide behind a car and just pop up when I wanted was very comforting for me. And yeah, it had enough for me. And then when I'd observe other people talking about elements of it that were boring, or it felt like they were racing through, and people were using phrases that were so alien to me, like end game content, and I didn't know what that was, and even the acronyms like DPS, or it seemed so normal. And for me, I felt like maybe back when I used to play games, only the biggest first-person shooter PC gamers perhaps talked in that language. Now everyone does, but I've also felt it was a bit strange that these phrases are interchangeable between games, even to the point where the game's makers use them. It's strange to me how a vernacular has just been accepted across entire genres or games. I find that quite interesting. Like, I guess the nearest thing that I can compare that to would be, like, say, a HUD. Back in the day, most shooter games or whatever had a HUD, but that seemed quite basic. Now everyone's got the same kind of, maybe it's, as you said, it's these open world games, but for me this is kind of my first.
I don't even think about it. It's weird. It's like we've just adopted all these abbreviations. I find myself sometimes stringing together sentences when I'm talking to maybe a non-gamer or a non-gaming enthusiast, like crazy person like us, and the sentences will consist of 4 or 5 3-letter abbreviations, and then I kind of stop and I go, "That was gibberish to you, wasn't it?" And they go, "Yes," and I'm like, "I'm really sorry. I need to remember that normal human beings don't talk like that."
Yeah, I'm learning very much on the fly. I think I'm doing well, but there'll be at least, even now, probably one a week when I go, oh, that means that, or oh, he means that. Like even last night, I ventured out from the Division, which is unusual, and I played a bit of Titanfall, and the guy I was playing with just kept saying, play the objective or something, and I'm saying, I don't really know what that means, and he's like, hold A or hold B, and I'm like,
nope.
What does that consist of? What do you need me to do? And I felt pretty stupid, but it's just like I need layman's terms here. What would you like me to do? But there's a lot of assumed knowledge.
That's amazing. I mean, it's like a baby's first steps into modern gaming. It's
yeah.
I that's one of the reasons I was excited to get you on the podcast and have you as part of the team, because I think you're going to bring a really interesting perspective to these modern games, and maybe see through some of the bullshit that others like us have got so used to that, and we've accepted to this point where we're blinded by it a little bit. So I think that's really curious. I mean, and I'm going to be interested to find out what you're excited for coming up in E3 and the end of the year games, and what's on your radar. Maybe we'll talk about that later or in the next show or something. But yeah, it's really curious.
Very very briefly then, let me ask you guys.
Yes.
Do you? I mean, as you said, for you it's second nature, Ben. But do you not like see how a lot of these games use the exact same system, like this concept of grinding and leveling up and stuff? Do you not feel that it's a bit tired, or it's weird that it's generic across so many games and games makers?
There is a level of stifled creativity that's happening right now. I think games developers are playing very safe with a lot of the games that are being produced at the moment because of the cost of development. So I think there is certainly
they don't want to take risks.
Yeah, exactly. And so the shared experience shooters like Destiny and the Division, and the more that are coming, and the multiplayer only experiences that were Titanfall and things like that, and Battlefront, things are being developed in a way which don't really push envelopes. So when a game does come out that does feel different, or is perhaps like a game I'm going to talk about later, a throwback to something that came out 20 years ago, it really stands out because it isn't one of those experiences. It isn't a cookie cutter experience, such as the Ubisoft open world experience, which there are so. I mean, I remember in the last couple of years, I reviewed just about all of them. And I got so burnt out at one point, I felt sick when I saw a map of a Ubisoft game, because you just see all this crap, and it's all the same crap that you've done 6 times before in the last 4 months, and you just want to die.
Well,
But it's,
I was going to say, to end the Division topic then for me, I'll let you know, maybe you'll be pleased. I'm now getting bored of it.
well, the thing is, I bought the season pass.
Me too.
You know, I'm going to come back. I'm going to see what new content comes up. So it's not like I've drawn a line under it. The main reason I stepped away is the problems, the bugs, and the exploits that have ruined the things like the Dark Zone and stuff like that. So.
Do you want to talk about those?
Is it like a couch situation where I'm going to lie down and get them off my chest?
No, I mean, like, for instance, someone was saying to me yesterday that they stopped playing Division ages ago, which seems kind of mad because it's not really been out long, but I understand. But that they feel like the community's a bit toxic, and I said, well, in my experience, I've actually met some really sound people on there that will just go out of the way to help you. It's a bit nervy in the Dark Zone. I suppose most people by now know what that's about, but it's the acronym PvP, which I learnt. So that's a lot about, like, you kind of. Apparently, it means player versus player, and in the division's kind of, it's quite a nervy part of the game, because even your teammates might turn on you. You'd like to think not like your mates, but it's people you team up with. And I had an experience, and it's not good for the heart. But mostly my experience with other players in there has been really good. Like, everyone's been quite cool. But for instance, when they released the first lot of content, which was the Incursion Falcon Lost, there's now a situation where I think Massive or Ubisoft have made a massive misstep with incorporating gear score, which is something that happens when you get to the final level. So when you get to level 30, there's a gear score, and it's an average score based on all your equipped gear. And they stated that for Falcon Lost, you needed a minimum of 140, recommended 160. And now we're in a position where if you try and matchmake and join some strangers, you're now in a position where people with what's considered a low gear score, which now apparently is anything below about 190, whoever's decided that, they're pleading with these people, please don't kick me, please don't kick me. And now some of these people are saying, well, I'm deliberately helping people because they're getting booted from games. So unless you've got 3 mates who can help you, you can't play this additional content, because this snobbery, and it's complete false, because as people are now kind of writing articles I've seen on, like, Reddit, the gear score is actually not that important. Now, what's more important is how much damage you can take. So actually, I got to a point where I had a gear score of 183, which is 23 points better than they even recommend. And my health was at 40,000. Now people are saying, you know what, you need a minimum of 60,000 health to do this incursion, otherwise you're going to die. So this gear score doesn't seem to really matter that much. And it's causing strangers to exclude people or kick them from their games. So a lot of people now are being left with a bad taste in the mouth because they can't do this incursion. They might have paid for this additional content, and they can't do it because they're getting booted from games because they don't have high enough equipment. And the only way you can get high enough equipment is just by playing the game for hours and hours and hours and being very good at it, and reaping the benefits of the gear. Or the irony being, the best way to get the high-end gear is by completing the incursion. But how can you do that if people keep kicking you out?
Well, it's almost like you play a lot of the Division, Gavin.
A little bit.
Almost like that. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I just one more last thing, and we'll wrap it up. I mean, the idea that you're going to be able to cut the rope when you extract from the Division, when you extract from the Dark Zone, that sounds insane to me that they're bringing that in. Like, the Dark Zone, that should be less relaxing. Yeah, totally. Yeah, let's make it more stressful. Good idea.
I don't play much. I don't play much Dark Zone, by the way. I haven't got nerves for it. It stresses me out, genuinely.
Right, Richard. Hello.
Hello.
You don't play the
Division.
No,
never played it.
Never played it.
It's a shame.
It's a good game, but at this point, I'm not sure if I'd recommend it to you, to be honest.
It's one of those things, because it takes up such a monopoly of your time, as so many games do these days. It's one that I didn't feel I had time for, off the back of Destiny being in and out of that over a series of months. Yeah. It seems like most games these days seem to want to just eat up your entire free time to the point of excluding everything else. And it just feels quite bad for the industry as a whole, really, that everything that we play these days has to have a multiplayer added on, has to have experience or whatever, just some constant chip away that makes you think, I've got to play that again today. I've got to log in this morning, got to log in again after work.
Well, Gavin, here's a buzz term for you. That's games as a service rather than a product.
There you go.
I did read about this. I read about this.
That's what Richard is describing. The idea that you're buying a service and they want to keep you within their ecosystem so that you keep on purchasing DLC and you keep on buying their season passes and you log in every day, and it's this idea of this kind of grind so that you don't go to the competition, that you don't even know about the competition because all you care about is the Division or Destiny. It's another good example of that service sort of mentality. But yeah, no, I think it's going forwards.
If Richard bought the Division today, even to kind of catch up with people on his friends list, yeah, you'd have to put in a couple of weeks play really to get remotely caught up. It would
it was a similar problem that the Destiny had, but they've done stuff retroactively to fix that, like so you can power level to be at an equal footing with people much quicker now if you're a new player. And I imagine they'll do something similar with these content packs that come out with the Division, the part of the season pass. I am slightly worried that I bought the season pass and that it's going to come out and I'm not going to be able to play it because I'm not going to be high enough level with my gear. I am slightly concerned about that, but we'll see what happens down the road with that. I mean, the first paid pack is next month, isn't it, or the month after?
It's coming very soon. 1.2 update is due imminently, and yeah, they've roadmapped it all out. But that's interesting me as well to see that someone, I mean, not only even the concept of season passes is obviously very new to me and interesting, and as you said, it's to try and keep you coming back, and I understand it fully, but it's interesting for me to kind of work it out on the fly that they've got a year's worth of content spanned out, but I'm seeing a lot of people quitting the game, even people that have bought the content. I assume some of them will come back to see what the new stuff's about, but there seems to be a lot of people that have just gone, nah, I'm done with that game. So it makes me wonder how they can string people along for a whole year.
Well, they've got quite a lot of players and their retention isn't as bad as there's always the vocal minority online. I think that's what you'll find, Gavin. There'll be a lot of people gobbing about how, I've quit this. The same thing happened with Destiny, but they've still got a shit ton of players, seriously, but millions and millions and millions. Anyway, Richard, let's talk about something adult, grown-up, mature. You're going to go see some wrestling soon, aren't you? I'm very jealous.
Yeah, NXT is coming to my hometown.
When is that?
June 20-something, 23rd, maybe?
Damn it.
Yeah, so about a month away.
So jealous.
Shinsuke Nakamura t-shirt.
I recognised the strong style when you sat down earlier. Wow, I actually don't own any wrestling shirts. I keep seeing them, especially the NXT guys, and I'm like, you know what, that's really cool. That looks really cool design. I really like that guy. I should support him. Respect for you to actually, cough it up and give those guys a bit of cash because they do make money out of that. Their merch, those particular wrestlers, they get a bit off the profits there. So that's cool. I'm in actually a Destiny shirt today. You recognise that Warlock subclass Sunsinger shirt today? So no one? No, just me? Okay, fair enough. That's pretty nerdy. I won't deny it. Showing off our t-shirts, the wonders of video. So do you want to talk a little bit about wrestling? Go on, Gavin. Yeah, what's your t-shirt, Gavin?
It's black.
It's black. It's a black t-shirt. That's very goth of you. Well done. Bringing it back. Rock. Yeah. Richard. Wrestling. I want to hear about a bit from Richard about wrestling. So you're liking Shinsuke. He is pretty amazing, isn't he?
Wow, I don't know. I've bought the t-shirt. I like Shinsuke Nakamura, but I do have my reservations about him. I'd normally go for high-flying, technical style wrestlers. They're usually my favourite, the most exciting kind I go for. I suppose there's something different about Nakamura in that he's very much more sort of close quarters, knee attacks and high impact sort of moves, but don't know. I'm kind of in two minds about him. I got a Samoa Joe t-shirt as well. I'm much more into Samoa Joe's heavy hitting style, and for his size, he's ludicrously agile.
Yeah, he moves like crazy. I will point out this a little bit. I'm going to break kayfabe, Richard. Yeah, you're basically falling off the bottom of the screen here a little bit, mate. Can you do anything about your camera angle? There you go. That's a little bit better. Show off the t-shirt a little bit. It's all good.
Tip my Surface stand a bit. There
it's nice that somebody bought a Surface in the UK. I have to say, that you're supporting Microsoft on all fronts, as always. Richard's one of the few people on the planet who has a Microsoft Windows phone.
Well done.
Yeah, they've just sold that, haven't they? Didn't they get rid of that side of their business? Didn't I read that the other day?
No, that's bullshit.
They
Oh,
bought
okay.
Nokia.
I thought I saw they were getting rid of it though. I'm pretty sure I did, but anyway.
There's rumours all the time about Microsoft selling their smartphone division. I think that particular rumour is about feature phones.
Right.
I'm not sure what they do in feature phones anyway, because they owned Nokia for that purpose, didn't they? And then
They're about to relaunch Nokia.
3310's coming back strong.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's all about the retro phones, baby. You can kill someone with one of those.
Yeah, actually, Motorola are about to bring back the Razr.
Oh really? Are they doing it like as a touch screen? Because I was actually thinking about that the other day.
Bear in mind that Gav's only got news from 2005.
Yeah, it's
Hot
true.
new phone, flip phones. Wow,
After-
that's like in the Matrix, man.
After this, you'll look up all the things I said and you'll be like, everything he said's dated 2005. That's not new.
He's
I'll
like the California man of technology.
I'll have to keep reminding myself. Stop saying new. It's not news. No, it's true.
I was genuinely thinking about this the other day. Why haven't they done a flip screen touch phone?
Well, I think Motorola are about to announce it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was thinking about that. I was like, wouldn't that mean it would be like stronger and like you wouldn't have to worry about the screen as much and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like an obvious thing to do. Really,
Well, especially now they're getting so thin. Like, why not?
And then you'd be able to cut down on the actual size of it in your pocket as well, which I think would be really helpful. Because I like my iPhone 6, the last iPhone 6S, I think, but it is big, and it kind of like. I like the power of it. It's an effectively good computational device, but at the same time, man, I feel like I'm carrying around a brick in my pocket.
Yeah, I've got an HTC One M8, and I don't mind the size, but it is quite big.
My wife got the big iPhone, the really big iPhone.
Okay, yeah,
which
the
was
Plus.
and I was like, that's insane. But I am quite jealous of it at times because the screen is so lovely. But at the same time, I couldn't put it in my pocket. It's mad, but she has a handbag, doesn't she? Women with their handbags. Men can't really get away with that, though. I think we should be able to.
You can have a man bag.
You could be like Jack Bauer, but I feel like I could only pull that off if I look like Keith Sutherland. I'm not quite there yet, so trying every day. Right, Richard, you've only got NXT. All right. I'm gonna put this to you because it is a big deal, and it's not exactly related to what we normally talk about on BXB's Bits and Bobs. I'm gonna say as if we've done more than one episode, but have your politics corner and do your thing. Richard, do your thing.
You cut out then. You cut out. What did you say?
Do your politics corner. Do your thing.
Politics corner.
Yeah.
Well, do you want me to just like?
Well, you put it down on the notes. Preach, man. Preach.
All right. Well, I did some leafleting yesterday for EU referendum.
Pest.
I'm hoping my employers don't watch this because I'm probably not allowed to. But yeah, that was an interesting experience. I'm voting to stay in the EU. Hopefully, most of us will. But it was interesting to spend a couple hours in town yesterday and just hear the vitriol of people that want to leave the EU. By and large, all of them are very angry at something in particular. Someone called me a traitor and started shouting various quotations at me from Winston Churchill to demonstrate how much of a traitor I was and that the war was exclusively to defend British people, and who was I to say that European people were of any more value than us. So that was interesting.
Interesting's all of it, yeah.
Kind of depressing, but I don't know if that's just Plymouth or...
Is there recurring themes?
Well, in terms of people's objections?
Yeah.
They're all hideously offensive. Someone said that they were voting to leave because they'd seen an Arab selling the big issue down the road. It's that kind of level.
What's that even got to do with Europe? I'm confused. Oh, mate. I was just going to say, was there a recurring theme? Yes, they're all as thick as shit. But hey,
hang on. But this is an important point here, because are they? Look,
yes.
But are they? Like that's the thing sometimes. Like after the last general election, and there was this kind of outcry of, oh, nobody voted for Labour, and the Conservatives are in it, they're shits, and you're all thick. Why did you do that? It's like, I think there's a difference sometimes between ignorance and stupidity, and I think it's very dismissive to just out and out just say they're thick. But that's why we should pursue the conversation, because after the last general election, I was seeing lots of people, particularly on social media, shooting down others, like they were basically attacking people, and it's like that's the worst way to try and convince them to change their mind is by attacking them.
Oh God, you're reasonable, like Richard. Christ, what am I going to do now?
I've been there, but you just, I think
Gav's right. It doesn't work to attack.
Right.
My approach yesterday was just to talk to people about it. You'll find that people will be more open to ideas if you just present the ideas. Let them decide for themselves, but that's the problem.
Have faith in democracy.
Well, you have to. People just have to have the information. And the trouble is that when they see the front of the Sun or a more respectable newspaper, as I was told, the Daily Mail, then, if people see that and that's all they see, then obviously that's what they're going to believe. So you don't need to press the point too hard. You just need to show that there is another side, and hope that people will listen to that and find out for themselves.
I was just going to say, I actually, just by chance, I saw that there was a conversation in my timeline on Facebook from some kind of extended family of an older generation, and they were talking about this very subject. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about it at the moment, and they were all very much vote to leave, and there was a lot of ignorance. But what was a little bit refreshing is that we managed to have a conversation where nobody got offensive or attacked each other, and what I got, even though I could tell the main guy, it was his war, he always voted Conservative, was quite close-minded in a way. But one thing I did notice was he was genuinely interested in the conversation, and he felt, and as did I, even though we were coming from two different angles, that there wasn't enough, and I know it's maybe a bit wishful thinking, but conclusive, clear information either side of the argument. It's so muddied that, I mean, even, I like to think I've got my finger on the pulse to a degree, but even I know I'm voting stay, but hand on heart, there's not enough easy to digest information out there either side. Like, I saw a guy made a video, their group's called Scientists for the EU. Did you see this video on Facebook?
No,
and the guy made a response video to Brexit the movie. I don't know if you're aware of that. And it was great, but I was watching it not thinking, I'm of some sort of higher intellect, because a lot of it I didn't get, but all I could think throughout this whole video that was only 8 minutes long was most people they're going to tune out, they're not going to hear what this guy's saying. It was so complex and convoluted. How does the layman stand a chance?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? This is the problem, right? We elect people into government to make these decisions because we believe that they will become more informed than the general public. There should never have been a referendum about staying in the European Union for the exact reason that you just described, Gavin. I mean, it's like the most people, what are you going to do? Take out a month from work to learn about the intricacies of the subject to make a fully informed decision? No, you're going to read 3 pamphlets and go, in, out. I mean, and that's all you're going to do. That's why it shouldn't be a decision that should be made by the public. And that's why it's such a fucking cop-out that Cameron made it one for the public to make. Because it's just ridiculous. Now that way he can go, well, either whatever happens, you can say the people chose. And nobody can make an informed decision.
I don't have an issue with there being a referendum, but you're right in that it requires people to be informed.
Yeah.
And the trouble that we have with Cameron calling this referendum is that he's the very man that's created a situation where people are quite happy to believe in misinformation and misdirection, and he's done quite well out of that over the years. Now he's on the other side of it, and he's worrying that maybe it won't go the way that he wants it to, and maybe we will leave the EU.
But don't worry, Richard, when we leave the EU and Cameron has to step down, it'll be fine, because Boris Johnson will become Prime Minister and he'll fix everything. So don't worry.
Can you imagine? This is my worry about the outcome, is that all this talk about us taking back our sovereignty, it's not us. It'll be Mr. Johnson having his own sovereignty to do exactly what he likes. And that's the scariest outcome I can imagine.
Just time travel a year into the future and see the world of Boris Johnson and Donald Trump running 2 of the biggest countries on the planet, and then fear for our safety. Like, seriously.
We're going back to going back to not being informed and there not being clear information. For me, it feels literally a case of vote to stay are saying, if we leave, things are going to be really bad. Economically, we'll be sent back to Dark Ages. There's no tangible information because it's just a worst-case scenario, which is completely forgivable. I've got no problem with people painting a worst-case scenario, but in the vote to leave, people are kind of saying everything's going to be fine. There's no information. Literally, I saw someone post the other day something along the lines of typical Britain for the British kind of message, which is worrying in of itself. But then just literally like, there's usually, we don't need Europe to tell us what to do. It costs this much money for us to do it, which is a lot of money, and things will be better if we do it ourselves. And it's like, based on what? Based on what?
Well, based on the fact that we're not really a politics podcast, I'm going to probably have to move us on from this topic.
Fair
because if we did have any listeners, we may have just lost all of them. But I'm just, it's important. I want to talk about it, and I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about it again in the future, depending on what happens. But our own personal political issues aside, for fuck's sake, go and vote.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. For me, that's the biggest issue. Everyone, make sure you register to vote. Go and vote.
I should probably have asked if I could swear on YouTube or not. Probably not, but I have.
No, you can. You've got absolute fucking freedom to fucking swear.
Brilliant. Well, fucking jolly good time. Let's have a cup of tea and be British. I want us to talk about another form of doom now. Not the doom that might happen from us leaving the European Union, but the doom that comes from hell and can only be fought by Space Marines.
Mate, that's one of your best segues ever.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed it.
I'm just riffing today. I haven't podcasted in ages, and it's really nice to be doing it again. Doom, guys. I've fell so far back into this hole. I love Doom. I've always loved Doom, and as I said at the top of my video review, I was probably always going to enjoy this game, even if it was terrible, just because of the idea of me fighting demons on Mars makes me happy. That's just the way it is. Sounds like a dream job, really. I would sign up for that in an instant. Though I'd probably be killed within as many instances it took me to sign up. But Doom is back. Doom 2016. It's a reboot of the original Doom. It's just come out on Xbox One, PS4, and PC, and it's glorious. It takes enough inspiration from the classic to make it feel like it's truly rooted in it, and modernizes the game in enough ways that makes it feel like a modern first-person shooter as well, and I can't recommend it enough. I talk about it for about 15 minutes in my video review that went up last week, and the weird thing for me is I'm looking at my friends list right now, and the kind of same thing that happened with Quantum Break. Lots and lots of positive reviews, lots and lots of great talk about the game in the specialist medias and stuff like that, but not a lot of actual people playing it. I've only seen maybe like 3 or 4 people on my friends list playing it, and two of them. So yeah, you're playing the Division. Motherfucker. So why aren't you guys playing Doom?
Okay, so I played the online multiplayer beta.
Yes.
And that was a bit rich for my blood.
What do you mean a bit rich?
So fast, so because I'm not ignorant enough to believe that there's no skill involved, because I know there is, and I know the cream rises to the top, and there's going to be some people on there who are bloody excellent at these games. Standard. For me, I've just come out of my gaming coma, and it was so quick, so for me on a personal level, it felt very random. It felt like I would spawn and then someone would shoot me in the head, and that's it, over and over and over.
Okay, because I mean, what it felt like to me was a throwback, a little bit like a mixture between the original Doom's multiplayer, which was the first ever deathmatch, mixed with id's pinnacle of their multiplayer development, which was Quake, with a little bit of UT sprinkled on top, and then a little bit of Halo in there as well. Interestingly enough, because actually the multiplayer wasn't developed by it was developed by the guys that did the multiplayer for Halo 4. So there is definitely some Halo in there. And I think it's a really fun mixture. I know a lot of people didn't like that multiplayer beta, and I feel like it might have put a lot of people off the game, which is a real shame, because the campaign is amazing.
I'm hearing that.
It's absolutely amazing and worth the price of admission alone, regardless of the multiplayer and the amazingly sort of complex but yet flexible snap map features are in there as well, which are really, really cool. Not my cup of tea necessarily, but
that sounds crazy, doesn't it? When it's called Snap Map, you imagine that's just going to be just prefabricated rooms that you slot together, but it's a lot more detailed.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, the fact is that you're not just maybe like building a deathmatch arena for a bunch of guys. You can build and fully form single-player campaign missions. You can do all the AI pathing. You can spawn all the enemies. You can do a lot. It's a lot of like if, then, how, those kind of logic chains. So it's simple and yet offers a lot of complexity if you really want to dig into it to build these custom scenarios. And it's probably the area I've spent the least amount of time with because I'm waiting for the community to create lots of awesome shit that I can just jump in and enjoy. I'm not much of a sort of level designer myself. I'm more of a person that wants to enjoy the fruits of other people's labors because I'm lazy. But that, that's just the way I am. But with a single player though, let's get back to that. It's about 15 hours, which I thought was going to be a lot shorter. I expected it to be a 6-hour campaign that I would blast through and it would be really shallow. It's got replayability because it's gone back to the sort of labyrinthian type maps which make you remember very reminiscent of the original Doom, unlike say a Call of Duty which were very linear. So there's all these secrets and hidden areas and unlockables that make you really want to explore and dig into all the fun and the nooks and crannies everywhere. It's so much fun, and the combat itself just feels brilliant. Like the gunplay, the moment-to-moment gunplay of going into a room full of different types of demons and creatures, bringing out my super shotgun, taking a few guys out up close with that, switching to my railgun and hitting them with like full sort of siege mode, alternative weapon fire from my gun. Almost every gun has 2 different alternative fire modes. There's upgrades that you can do to the suit. There's upgrades you can do to the play your sort of playing mode itself. Gavin has his hand up, which is slightly odd that I can see that, so I'm going to have to get used to it. Gavin, how can I help?
I have a question, sir.
Please do, sir. I'm just monologuing, so go for it.
So, as someone that played the multiplayer beta,
yes.
Apart from the obvious, what the difference is? Is it just as fast-paced on the single player?
Yes, it is, but you're going to feel like it's much more manageable because of something that I think I might have missed out in my review, actually, which maybe it's because it became so kind of rote in the game. Not rote in a bad way, but it became such a normal way of playing that I didn't think of it as something unique when I actually came to do the review, which is the glory kill system. Now, what that means is when you shoot an enemy, and if you don't quite kill him, he'll flash like bluey gold color to know that he's like stunned. And then you can come in and finish him off with a melee attack. And what that means is you can control the encounters much better. So you can stun a bunch of guys with like a big explosive like rocket sort of barrage or something to that effect. And then you can take them out one after another. They don't stay stunned forever, but it gives you enough breathing room to really sort of think about the encounters and pace them out. And what it also does is when you do a glory kill, you're going to get your health and armor and ammo out of enemies sometimes as well. So it kind of like you end up playing the game a little bit more strategically than you would have thought you would have sort of originally when you're coming into a Doom game. But it really adds a level to the combat which is really compelling and exciting and fun to do and so gory. I love it. Bits of demons all over me.
I'm hearing lots of good things about specifically the single player campaign mode. Lots of good things.
I think it surprised a lot of people. I mean, I played that multiplayer beta. I enjoyed it, but I just never dreamed that they have done such a sort of faithful reboot of the original in the way they have. It's lengthy. There's even a fun kind of story in there, which I did not expect. They do this thing with like not audio logs, but like codex entries, if you like, which fill in the universe. They talk about the environments, the guns, the creatures and stuff, and they do it in this really scientific, po-faced way, which I'm pretty sure at first glance it seems to be unintentionally hilarious because it's so like, what the fuck? Do you know what game you're in right now? But I actually think they did it very intentionally by the end, and some of the writing is absolutely it's fabulous, and it just like explaining why cacodemons create balls of electricity through the synapses in their brains combined with the demon energy that's coming up through the ground, in a symbiotic relationship with this and that, and you're like, shut up, let me blow it up. It's great.
I love
it's so
that.
much fun.
Like that's impairing your enjoyment. I really like these cacodemons, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
They've left.
There's a codex. Let me check.
They've left no stone unturned. But what if they don't understand? We'll make them.
Like explanations of how the shotgun works. Like it's a shotgun. I don't need to know how it works. It blew that fucker's brains out. That's all I need to know. It's fabulous. And because of all of this, I'm rereading Masters of Doom, which is this fantastic book I highly recommend to everybody about its creation, how John Romero and John Carmack came together, their development story, how they moved through Doom in Quake and other projects and stuff like that. It's absolutely brilliant. If you're at all interested in the inside baseball of video games, it's one of the best, if not the best, novel I've ever read about that stuff, which is fantastic. So I highly recommend that as well. Yeah, the Doom novels, which are better than I remember them being. So they're quite good as well, in a terrible kind of way. But yeah, Doom, live it, love it, buy it, play it, do it.
Have to check it out.
Oh, it's really, really good. Seriously, really special, really special. Anything from you, Richard? Are you gonna play Doom? You should play Doom.
I think I am. I wasn't that fussed until I saw your review and started hearing about other people talk about the campaign. Because for me, Doom always was about the campaign.
Yep.
We forget that when that came out, online gaming didn't really exist in the way that it does now. And my first experience of multiplayer Doom was hooking up 2 PlayStation 1s on 2 massive CRT televisions. So, much more convenient these days. Back in the day, it was all about the single player for me most of the time. So if that's good, I'm interested in that.
Yeah, people I think give a little bit too much. I mean, people remember Doom multiplayer because it was the first deathmatch. But really, its multiplayer was Quake, and that's where they set it above. They just blew the fucking doors off of Quake when it came to multiplayer. Doom itself was more like an experiment, and it was kind of a novelty. I mean, I remember playing it, networking up some school computers and putting Doom on there illicitly, and we all got in trouble for it, but it was totally worth it playing that over a week's worth of lunchtimes. So I'll never forget that, and that's why Doom, like I said, it will always be held in my heart in a very special place, as it was kind of that first game that really got me into gaming. So back in '94.
Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, terrifying, brilliantly terrifying. That's the only downsides about this new Doom. It's not scary, and I don't think it tries to be scary either, really. Which is a shame. I mean, Doom 3 was very much a survival horror game.
Yes, I remember that on the PC from 2003 or 4, and I remember I had like a really high spec laptop. I got a copy of that. And I don't think I played it. I was so scared that I hardly played it.
It's a very dark game, very atmospheric game. A lot of cheap kind of jump scares.
Yeah. That's enough.
It's almost like they went, well, we tried that. It wasn't a massive success. Because Doom 3 is a reboot of the first Doom as well. And this one, they've gone, no, I'm not going to do horror. Let's just do that kind of that nostalgic view of Doom, which was big explosions, lots of gore. Speed and crazy bonkers storyline, and let's not try and be too serious with it. And it's a little bit of a shame that they lost the horror element, because I thought it was quite an integral part to that Doom experience. But hey, everything else is pretty much there. You'd recognise the guns instantly, you recognise all the monsters straight away, and it's great to see how they've updated the looks of everything, and it's brilliant.
What rating did you give it?
I give it 4 out of 5 stars on the new BXB rating system. Yeah. Should we talk about? Do you want to talk about the rating system, guys? How we changed things up, and how rating systems are arbitrary bollocks that we only use because, well, we kind of feel like we have to. So,
could talk about it. Probably didn't lose enough listeners on the.
Yeah, let's just push out the rest. Let's talk about scoring systems. Yeah, that's exciting. Well, look, they listen to me about Doom. Simply put, we had a 10-point, 100-point system, scoring things out of 10. And we've done away with that because we thought it was kind of pointless, because you basically get scores that were mostly 7s and 8s, and then the bad ones would all be 3s and 4s. So what's the point of having 10 points when you don't use it? So we've gone to a 5-point system, which basically starts as terrible, below average, good, great, and then something special at 5. I think it's more representative of how we feel about games now. You guys want to put anything in?
Well, what I would say as well is, despite the fact that the guys, particularly Richard, that write these fantastic reviews, that some people do just want to scroll to the bottom and find out what you gave it, or some people will just read the first and last paragraph, and just because they don't necessarily appreciate your good writing, it doesn't mean that they don't necessarily care. They're still on your site. They still want to know what you thought, but they're lazy or whatever. And also, I guess as well, from a kind of corporate perspective, it's easy to feed back to games makers or PR people in a very succinct manner. to give it. So I understand it from that perspective. I think in an ideal world, you know, people read what you say and they can garner from your thoughts what you thought. But yeah, scoring system's still kind of necessary, I suppose, in some regards. A bit like having genres in a music store or something. You know, some people will be like, oh, well, it spans multi-genres, or it doesn't matter, but you kind of still got to make it a bit easy for people to understand where you're at.
Gives people that initial hook, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not too precious about scores. I mean, I did go through a phase of thinking, well, if people aren't going to read what I've spent hours writing, then I ain't going to give them some shorthand, an excuse to ignore it. But then if they're not going to read it without a score or with a score, what difference does it make? So I'm not too fussed. And I think a 5-star system is a good sort of compromise to make sure that people do have that hook in, and it makes people think, well, that's an interesting score for a game that I was expecting maybe it would be at the top end. It's not. Maybe I'll give that a read and find out why. Yeah. It's a nice shorthand, and it gets you out of that hole that I've had sometimes where people will say, well, nice review, but it sounded like a 6 and you've given it 7. And you just think, well, fuck off.
I felt that about one of your reviews, actually. I was reading it thinking, oh, wow, he's really, you know, he's not that impressed. And then it was like, and I give it an 8 out of 10. I'm like, oh. But you know, that's down to interpretation anyway.
I mean, there is less room for that to happen with a 5-star system, so...
I mean, I was going to say, I won't name names or anything, but there was a review that came across my desk for proofing not that long ago, and I read the review, and then I talked to the guy who wrote it, and I was like, I don't think the score's right. And we ended up having this conversation. I wanted it to be higher, I wanted it to be lower, he wanted it to be higher, and, you know, bottom, you know, why? And that was part of the thing that made me think about this system and maybe changing the system we had. It just was a silly conversation in many ways. Yeah. And it was just like, the system we have now, I expect there to be it's going to be a lot simpler, and you probably will see those 5 stars a lot less, because I think the game will have to be some, like I said, I think something special is a good word for it, something that like is really standing out. That's why Doom isn't a 5, because it's brilliant and it's fantastic and it's great, which is where I put it, but it's not necessarily anything new.
Let me ask you something now.
This is standing out.
This is a bit arbitrary.
Yes, it always ratings are.
It usually is. But considering you gave The Division an 8 out of 10, it's a bit too pedantic to kind of say you'd automatically give it a 4 out of 5. But if you rescored it now on the 5 score thing, would you move that to a 3?
The other problem is with reviews as well, is that like I've finished Doom a while ago now, and I'm sat with it, and so I'm thinking about it. You know, I'm sitting here thinking about it quite a bit, and then when I'm talking about it more, I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe it is better than a 4, maybe it is a 5. It's kind of with The Division, it's like, the more time you spend with the game. When I finished that game prior to review, it was before the patches, it was before the updates, it was before these things like this. It was before all the technical problems and the glitches became an issue in the Dark Zone. So the question is, you know, would I score it lower now because of those problems, or does that score at the time stand because that's how I felt with it at the time? And I think it's fair to say I probably wouldn't change it, because you have to score it and be honest with yourself as something is in that moment, you know, and that's your opinion in that moment, you know. So it's you know, I don't want to become a Polygon where they go back. You know, their scores are weird anyway, because the scores at, say, Polygon aren't decided by the reviewer. They're decided by like a committee of the editors based on what's written, right? And then their scores can also change over time based on how the game changes over time. Now, I'm not sure I like that. No, I think a score should reflect what it is and in that moment from your perspective.
Agreed, because I think what if you say a particular game is 10 out of 10, best game ever, or best game of the year, and then come near the end of the year, another game comes out which is just head and shoulders above.
Yeah, does it move it back?
Do you then say, well, actually, this is the 10 out of 10, so now that other game, we've got to move that down now to a 9.
Exactly.
It's just confusing.
It's confusing.
How far back do they go? Because Gav says at the end of the year, it could be 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't keep revising it.
Well, there's a great example. I'm a big fan of films as well. You know, it's quite possible films will get discussed on here from time to time as well. And a great example of that was that Empire gave. I listened to the Empire podcast. They gave Attack of the Clones Episode 2 a 5-star rating. Right now, what they talk about on the show. Would that happen now? Probably not. But have they gone back and changed it? No, because
Well, they have to stand by it.
that's not what you do. You have to stand by it. So yeah, I mean, like, we're not gonna retroactively go back and turn the scores from out of 10 into stars. That's unnecessary, and I think, you know, they are what they are. And we're going forward. We've got the 5-star system, and I think, you know, that's a better system. See, this is the thing. People, when you hear about talking about ratings and stuff, you go, oh god. But then it's kind of interesting because you're talking about points of view, and it's kind of arbitrary. And it's like, why is it stars? Why isn't it out of 5 shits? You know, that was
one of the suggestions, wasn't it?
There were many suggestions when I opened this up to all the creators on the site as to what direction to go, and I had to take it all on board and try and come out with the probably in some ways the most boring option, but probably the fairest as well.
Do you think, just as a final note on that, do you think that a rating should be based on analysing the technical aspects of the game, or how much you actually enjoyed the game?
Ooh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Some sites and some reviewers will lean in different directions. I am a feels kind of guy. I'm very much about the feeling I have from a game. Did I enjoy this game? Did I love this game? Did I hate this game? And that's how I write reviews. Some reviewers will be far more technically focused and pick apart the graphics a bit more. It makes you think of the old style of reviews. Do you remember when it was like sound, graphics, story, overall, percentage based on those sections? Each section would be scored. Some sites used to score each section, and then the final score would be an average of those scores.
I remember that.
Bonkers, mate. That's crazy. I'm so glad we don't do that anymore. That's just nuts. They'd have algorithms. I mean, GameSpot, I remember, used to have an algorithm that would work it all out, and it'd be like, what the fuck? Like, no, for me, it's feelings. Richard, where do you stand on it? I mean, are you different?
Kind of halfway between the two for me. I mean, it's about whether the game does something to entertain me more than whether it pushes the hardware of the console. But if it doesn't work properly, then that's obviously an impediment to my enjoyment. So it has to be a factor.
Yeah.
And of course, it's always 100%, you know, that person's opinion. I'm not trying to review. I don't think we should try to review anything like from a weird. I get people moan at me all the time about this, and it's like, no, I'm not trying to do like the spec sheet of a car here, you know, or something crazy. It's my feelings about this thing, you know. And another thing I'm not always fond of, but it does come up sometimes, is bringing in the price aspect into value, you know, that kind of thing. I think a game should try and be what it is regardless of its price, you know. So I'd rather not talk about, oh my god, that was an amazing experience considering it was only £10.
Well, it could work in the opposite way as well, where someone might be like, oh, it was a really amazing game, but after I had to buy all these editions, it was £100, so because of that, I'm giving it 11.
That's exactly my problem with Destiny. I think did I score Destiny a 7 the last update?
You scored the update lower than what you scored the core game, even though it improved the game. Yeah, but you had a really good reason for it. Yeah, it was really interesting when you did that. Yeah, I remember I was talking about it quite a bit on the podcast. Your logic behind that decision, but you know, and that was your logic, and you were the reviewer, and that's what I think is important on BXB is people get to know the voices. And we aren't necessarily going to have a strict policy across all of it for like the whole site, but it's the individuals. And that's what BXB is all about, is the individuals. Yeah. So should we move on? That was interesting. I actually quite enjoyed talking about that. What was it? Well, we can't not talk about this. I mean, this is one of the hottest games right now. And I would like to throw over to Richard to bring us in on this one, which is
The Division.
The Division. Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4.
Yes.
That's what you interrupted me playing earlier on, Ben, with your ridiculously early demands to test whether we could get this podcast working.
Well, it helped, didn't it? We got it. Hopefully, this is going to work wonderfully. Now it's doomed because I said that.
Yeah, we had just enough time, didn't we? So I didn't need to be there over an hour earlier than we actually.
All right, shut up. Anyway, Uncharted 4. How far in are you?
I don't know how big the game is, but going on past episodes, they're about 23 chapters, are they? Something
22.
like that? 22. Right, I'm on 13, I think, or 14. So
you're around where I am. I had to stop because of Doom to review, so I had to basically stop. I just got out to sea, shall we say, without spoiling anything. I'm on a boat for the first time, other than the intro, and that's where I've stopped after a confrontation with someone, which was, oh my god, so emotional. Holy shit! As a married man, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, that was a gut punch. But you're just about to get to a really important turning point in the game.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is where it
Well,
starts to get.
I heard a very humorous thing that someone said this morning where they were like, there's 22 chapters, but be patient because it starts to pick up at chapter 10. And I thought, bloody hell, that's a
Yeah.
lot of gameplay. Chapter 10, yeah.
I've heard a lot of people talking about how it's a slow start, and I agree. I definitely wasn't feeling hooked in by it in the beginning. It took me quite a while to get really into it. So yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, what did you feel about the opening, Richard?
I think it's quite slow. Just going back to the technical discussion, the Uncharted is obviously the game that people think is really going to push their PlayStation, and it's going to be the benchmark of what the console performance looks like today. And for me, that wasn't true for the first 6 to 8 hours of the game. It felt like it was just good. Getting onto the boat section that you're on now and the coming sections that I won't spoil, it looks absolutely phenomenal.
The visuals are
Incredible.
yeah.
From a gameplay perspective, it's had a few sort of misses. It's more hit than miss, but there's a few issues with it that I thought, well, that was a little bit clumsy. I don't think it's quite early on, so it's not too much of a spoiler to talk about the auction scene, where you have to get that key card to access a backdoor area.
Yeah.
I felt the mini game to get that key card just felt a bit too clunky, and I didn't like where the game was going. It seemed like it was just going to have too much of those small little gameplay snippets rather than a cohesive experience. But it's getting much more towards the real Uncharted exploration adventure that I know and love from the previous trilogy.
I was going to ask actually, Richard, is Uncharted like a series that people really love historically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I've seen a lot of people defending it quite heavily whenever there's been any kind of hit back. Like even on the BXB Facebook group, there was a conversation about it, and one person said they were a little disappointed, and they said it's still a great game, but it was kind of an 8 out of 10 for them, and they felt that some bits were a bit flat, and that person kind of got a bit savaged.
He did. I was kind of disappointed to see that, to be honest, because I agreed for the most part. I mean, I didn't jump in because I've not finished it, and I thought that would be unfair. Because at the moment, I feel like I'm trying to rush through the combat to get to the bits I like. Because combat is fine. It's probably the best it's ever been, but I just don't enjoy them. I enjoy the climbing, traversal stuff. I enjoy the exploration, and I love the cutscenes, the storytelling. I genuinely care about those characters, and I really want to find out what happens, and that's why I'll finish it. Because the combat, which it just doesn't excite me. It's done fine, and I'm glad the addition of the stealth mechanics have come in, and you can therefore mix things up a little bit. But nah, the moment-to-moment combat is just kind of dull.
It's not that great, is it? And I think the character stuff, that is why people would take it personally if you didn't enjoy it quite as much as they did, because it's kind of the standard bearer for characters in video games. It's the one that has those one-liners that aren't just someone walking into a recording studio and reading off the script. They feel natural. These people feel like they're real people.
You mean unlike Resident Evil on the PlayStation or something?
Yeah, it's kind of unlike that, I suppose.
Resident Evil 6 is unlike a lot of games as well, by the fact that it's terrible. But they really re-released that one first. That's important that they did that.
But well, that's testament to Uncharted 4, though, that if it's not, I mean, nothing's ever going to be a perfect game, but if it's got these perceived flaws, but it's still carried so highly by certain aspects of the game, then that's testament to the quality of the game overall, I suppose.
It's a good game. A lot of it rides on how it finishes, and I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
And this is being set up as Nathan Drake's final adventure, and it would be very difficult, so the makers tell us, to make a sequel with Nathan Drake. So not sure what's going to happen yet still at this stage, but it's definitely got lots of pieces in play to make it an interesting story so far, and it could fall a number of ways. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But yeah, it's definitely up there with the rest of the trilogy. But then even Uncharted 3, which got quite a lot of flack, I really enjoyed that one. So I think I probably love it more than most, I would say.
Yeah, it's a great series, man, Gavin. Yeah, I definitely highly recommend if you can get hold of a PS4 and get the collection at some point and go back and experience it. You know, I would definitely say it's one of the best. I think, without a doubt, the second game is the standout experience. It's still, to me, the best one. Though we'll see what happens. Like you said before, I think it's got so much on this third act and how things are concluded and how they're brought together at the end to actually see if this is going to really stand up for me as one of the great experiences. Because right now, I'm sat on that boat and I'm looking at this sort of area I'm going to be exploring, and I'm just thinking to myself, I just want another cutscene. I just really want to see a movie, really.
What, so you'd rather watch a film?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, it's the story and the characters that I'm invested in. It's certainly not the moment-to-moment gameplay. I mean, the thing that really elevates it, though, is, my God, it is the most beautiful game I have ever played.
I've seen some video footage and it does look stunning.
Oh, my God.
We should point out, though, that the character stuff in Uncharted, it's not just cutscene. They do a really good job of working that into the gameplay itself.
Yes.
So walking around with your NPCs, they'll comment on things that they see and that you're doing, and it all feels very natural. They'll refer to things that maybe you've driven past a pirate ship or something earlier on, and they'll reference that in their speech. Or if you didn't pass it, they won't. And it all feels not just like canned chat. It's all very natural feeling and just draws you into that experience all the more. One other thing I would say, Gav, if you don't get a PS4, and some will think it's heresy for me to say this,
I know what you're going to say.
Try Quantum Break. That's not too far away an experience from Uncharted. A lot of people won't like me saying...
Do you know what? That surprised me.
I
thought you were going to say Tomb Raider. But no, you surprised me with the Quantum Break recommendation. I really enjoyed Quantum Break a lot, actually. Again, I think I gave that an 8 out of 10.
That's got a lot of cutscenes, right?
Well, not really. No, they're live action. So it's cut together with a TV show, basically.
Right.
It's a really interesting piece of experimental kind of interactive fiction, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cool. No, good shout, Richard. Actually, I think that's a really good recommendation. Actually, if you've not got a PS4, give Quantum Break a go. No, that's a very good idea. Quickly though, we sort of touched on it with Gavin's mentioning a savaging people got for a negative opinion of Uncharted. I think the great example of this was the kind of like purposefully contrary review the Washington Post put out. This guy is famous for not going with the masses, and well, the response online was somewhat insane. With a petition for him to change their Metacritic representation of the score, because the actual review didn't have a score, but when they got it on Metacritic asked them to put a score on it to give them a score so they could use it, and they decided it should be a 4 out of 10. Again, with the arbitrariness of scoring, considering the review didn't actually have a score on it, and there's a petition for them to take that review off of Metacritic because it's unduly affecting the average on there. So,
but is that not the idea of an average? That it represents lots of people's feelings. Like, did the score match what the words said in the review?
Yeah. Well, it did, and it was a decision made by, I believe, the guy who wrote the review and his editor that was the score it should have. They chose the score. It wasn't Metacritic choosing a score, as some incorrectly reported in the beginning. And I just think the only problem I had with this was that one of the amazing voice actors on Uncharted, Troy Baker, who voices Sam, and has voiced many other things amazingly, including Joel in The Last of Us, he legitimized this petition by signing it and then tweeting that he'd signed it. And therefore sort of saying that this public reaction to a critical review was okay. And somebody should have told him to shut the fuck up and not do that, because that somewhat upset me that he would think that was an okay thing to do. But
yeah, sets a bit of a precedent.
It does a bit, doesn't it? Yeah, it was foolish, I believe, of him. But I mean, what do you think of all that, Richard? I mean, like, we're just talking about scoring and just talking about reviews. How would you feel if you had an army of thousands telling you were wrong because, you know, the majority was going the other way?
But you can't be wrong.
Exactly.
Well, how can you be wrong when it's your opinion? I don't understand how you can petition someone to have a different opinion.
Well, was it? I saw the link that Ben sent over from Kotaku, and it basically that one of their gripes was that they didn't feel that the reviewer was able to articulate enough reasoning behind some of the scathing comments. I haven't actually read the review, so I don't know kind of how fair that is, but I guess maybe people might be pushed to think that way if they really, really disagree with the review. But as you say, it's the guy's opinion, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I kind of think that if someone is that bothered about an average score on Metacritic, if it's that much of an issue to them that they want to take the time to set up a petition, wouldn't that time be better spent reading the reviews themselves to find out what the outliers were and getting an educated message on whether the game is good or not? Or maybe they've already played the game, and why do they care what the review says?
Well, what's the
they know
byproduct?
they enjoy it.
What's the down point? What's the byproduct? What's the negative result apart from someone wrote something I didn't like?
Well, there is something. There is something, depending on a piece of information I don't have. That is that some developers and publishers will tie the bonuses that the people that work on a game will make into the average score Metacritic will give it. For example, if they get an under, say, an average of 8 out of 10, they don't get their bonuses on the game. Now, I don't know if Naughty Dog and Sony do that. I don't believe they do, because I believe Sony does a milestone-based bonus system. But there are developers and publishers that do that. Now, therefore, an outlying review that could pull the score down could have a negative effect on somebody's paycheck, which would be shit, to say the least. So,
well, one I guess thing that I could probably bring up that might fit under this to a degree, particularly if what you say is, true. Within some sports, boxing, for instance, is one where if one of the judges does something completely against what the other two judges have done, then that might come under scrutiny. The result being they won't change a decision, but that judge may potentially not be asked to officiate future events. But it would take, and even that, to be honest, doesn't happen very often. Like there's some that have got reputations for doing this and going against the groove, and they'll be there judging every championship fight that happens in Las Vegas every single time. So I don't know. I mean, it's who's got the control, or whose call is it to say I don't like the way you do this, or you don't follow the grain, you must go.
I think it's fair to say in this situation, what I just explained, that's the fault of Metacritic having too much power. That is not the fault of the Washington Post's review.
Sure.
That is not on him at the Washington Post. That is on Metacritic having way too much influence over how the sausage is made. Considering they're just this bullshit aggregate website that shouldn't matter at all. But
even if it has some sort of impact, that doesn't account for the people signing this petition, because I would guarantee that the majority of them are not Naughty Dog employees looking after their own bonus. It's just
are they not just altruistic individuals that think these guys made an amazing game? They deserve their bonuses,
no,
man.
I think what it is people misunderstanding what a review is for. It's there to inform you of whether a game is worth buying or not, or whether it's of interest to you.
I'm not sure if a review is to inform. Shouldn't necessarily be about buying decisions, but I'm not sure I agree with that. But at the same time,
why do you think people read reviews?
To affirm their own bias.
I think that's why people end up. I think that's why people end up writing petitions, because it's oh my gosh, you didn't agree with me and my friends. But yeah, I guess that's
a lot of people. That's what this is about. This is about an outlier that doesn't affirm someone's previously held bias. This is because these people believe it should be a 9 or a 10 out of 10, and I want to only read reviews that agree with my opinion, because that's what the internet's become.
That's what I was going to say, is that's what reviews are sometimes seen as, but to me that's not what they're for.
Well, I think it's a mixture. I'd like to think that there's some people that read reviews and go, oh, I wasn't sure, but that's a good review, and he's rated it highly, maybe I'll go and buy it, but maybe that's just my little utopian view on it. Who knows?
Well, at the very least, it's to say something different about the game that you don't know. It's not. If it's just to reaffirm what you already think, what's the point in reading it?
A lot of people do that, though.
Lot of people do it, yes. Or conversely, I like to think, I play a game sometimes and I think, oh man, that was maybe it wasn't for review or whatever, but it was an 8 out of 10, that was a 4 out of 5. And then I'll go online and find the ones that are on the other end of the spectrum, because I'm like, wow, okay, cool, he clearly didn't agree with that. I'm really curious as to see why,
I've read
a reason.
I've read a review, I've done the same thing and then gone, that's bullshit, or that's totally wrong, but I can't imagine ever feeling like I would sign a petition or start a petition. I can't imagine getting that angry and thinking it's that important, but each to their own.
Well, you know what they say about online petitions anyway, not worth the paper they're written on. So, Shall we move on to? I think we've covered a lot of stuff here. We've been going for quite a while, about an hour and a half of recording now. Fingers crossed this won't be lost. I think we should end on a slightly sad note, and I think it's definitely one that deserves some acknowledgement, and that is the end of Lionhead. Okay. Basically, Eurogamer, they did this amazing retrospective, the guys over there. I don't have his name in front of me. An amazingly well-written piece about the history of Lionhead. One of the most famous British developers, lasted very nearly 20 years. It was created by Peter Molyneux of Hype fame. And basically, you know, known for the Fable series, known for Black and White in the movies as well before that. Do you guys have any particular fond memories of a Lionhead game that you'd like to share in memory of these amazing developers?
Well, first thing I'd like to say actually is that, number one, that article, everyone go out and find it and read it. It's a really long read, but it's wonderful. And Cards on the Table, it filled in so many gaps for me, because my initial reaction, I think it was the post that you'd written, Ben, was quite flippant, and it was based purely on stories I'd heard over the years about how Peter Molyneux interferes and he meddles and he lies and he's upset so many people. Everything going back to the famous tree episode with Fable, and how he said it would follow your whole lifespan and the tree would grow, and any acorn that dropped, and Peter Molyneux terribly just lies and bullshits, and you know, they got what they deserved. And then I read that article and it was like, there's a lot more going on here and a lot more to this. But to go to your question, for me, the main one would be the first Fable game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was Fable 2. I think that hit. They achieved their ambitions. They achieved most of their promises, and it really felt like the culmination of the vision of what the Fable universe would be. And it blew me away. It was a fantastic game. What about you, Richard?
I think Fable 2 as well. The famous thing is the dog, isn't it?
Yes.
But what struck me the most was the transgender potion. That's my favourite memory playing it. Although the co-op was pretty much terrible in that game, I did play it quite a bit with a friend, and just seeing him turn into a woman halfway through the game, and it just treats it like it's not a joke or anything in particular. I thought it was quite a forward-thinking.
I had a gay marriage thing in one of the games as well, didn't they? Like, it's quite forward-thinking, I suppose. You know?
They talk about that in the Eurogamer article, and how they basically were breaking down boundaries, and I think the bit that's talking about the dog is like, one day Peter came into a meeting and said, "There's going to be a dog, and we're going to kill it." And that was how the decision was made, and it is like, and then make it. Like, you know, that's what Peter was like, and it sounds like, what a visionary. I mean, that's a true auteur. I mean, that's the kind of person I feel like we don't have enough of in games development. Yes, he promised the world and often missed, but you know, if you don't strive for these things, if you don't try to achieve these things, and you know, put your teams in these awful positions where this guy's gone to a press junket and promised all this shit, and they're just like in the office going, "What? We haven't done any of that. Oh fuck!" You know, I think that's amazing. That's crazy. It's bonkers, and it's so British. And I love that.
one of the good bits of trivia from that article actually is that, you know, it tells you the strength of Peter Molyneux's name, when people probably didn't even realise at the time that Fable wasn't even a Peter Molyneux game.
No, I don't think I realised that at all until I read that. Yeah. I didn't realise it came from another studio that they folded in.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. I didn't know that at all. But it's like I said, 20 years. We were until recently a single format Xbox website, and the fact that Microsoft killed this studio when, you know, they've kept Rare going, producing crap, but they kill Lionhead with a new Fable Legends game which was 95% completed after those poor developers struggling to make it. I feel really bad that Microsoft's done that, and I kind of wish they'd given them another chance and let them, you know, really rise to their potential. So it sucks, man. You know,
it's sad.
It's really, really sad. And you know, that's just the way it is. But anyway, E3 is just around the corner. I hopefully will be doing an E3 prediction show as our next podcast, and there's loads of content constantly going up on the website, guys. The website is bxbgames.co.uk. Reviews such as my review of Superhot, my review of Party Hard, and my review of The Stories Path of Destiny are all on the website. Mostly my reviews because Richard and Gavin are really lazy. But that's, you know, that's on them. That's on them. I'm amazing, so just, you know, that's fine. But then you're just gonna silently agree with me and let me get away with that. Okay.
Sorry, I was busy hanging my head in shame.
I just said more. I should just big myself up more. You're just gonna agree by not replying. Even the baby agrees. That shows the level of your laziness, people.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go and have a word with her. Give me a second. Be right back.
Oh, BRB, that is, by the way, Gavin, in case you didn't know. I know you're not up with your abbreviations. Oh, he literally has muted himself and gone away. Okay, that's fair enough. That's what old people gamers like us have to deal with. Things like wives and children, isn't it, Richard?
And dogs.
And dogs. Frank's amazing. He's like the fourth member of the podcast. I love Frank. I love him. But yeah, like I was saying, we've been playing lots and lots of games and loads of stuff we've not had a chance to even cover in this episode because I guess we've been away so long. We've been rambling a little bit. Richard, not rambling that much. Is there anything you wanted to bring up in the end here, Richard?
Nope.
Nope. Throw to Richard, get nothing. That's how it works. You can follow the website in general at BXB Games on Twitter. We have a very active Facebook feed now and a group. Please join the group, join in the conversation on there. That would be great. We'd love to have you on there. I'm also at DIYE on Twitter. Richard, you are?
I'm at Colonel Red on Twitter.
Gavin.
You know what Gav is while he's
Gavin,
gone?
I don't know what he is. He's disappeared, so we could try to vamp until he comes back, I suppose.
I think he's just Jeej, isn't he?
It's just, I see him returning. The beauty of video, you can actually see things like this happening. Hopefully he'll come back on and we can ask him. This is how it works, live recording people. Gavin, who are you on Twitter? Where can people find you?
On Twitter, at Gav Handley, GAVHANDLEY. You can come and pester me. I don't use Twitter as much as I used to, but that's where you can find me, and I will find you.
Cool, excellent. And I'll throw out some gamer tags as well. I'm Hallben on Xbox.
I'm there's no at.
No.
J33J for Jeej, so J33J.
And I'm Colonel Red with a space between the two words, unlike on Twitter.
So it's an important. Did nobody else try and get new names? Because Microsoft put up like nearly a million unused gamer tags in the week.
I might try and get my old one, which was, well, I'm not going to say what it is because someone might go and take it.
I'm going to go take it straight away. That's what I'm going to do. But like I said, that was a bumper show, and I feel like it was a good 90 minutes plus of podcasting, and we'll be back in a week, in 2 weeks. At some point, we'll see when it comes up, and we'll do another show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being on. Maybe you'll be on next time. Maybe we'll change it to somebody with less beard to balance things out. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. It was really good having you, Gavin, actually.
Thanks.
It was really good having you as well, Richard.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And hopefully this is all going to work, and you'll see it / hear it soon. So until next time, bye!
Bye.
Bye. Don't forget to wave.